Iowa State is a much better team than you think. Last year, the Cyclones took a major step back, seeing their 5-game bowl streak come to an end with a 4-8 season, but that was expected. When you lose generational talent like Brock Purdy and Breece Hall, you're bound to take a step back. What a lot of people don't realize is Iowa State was really close to having another special year. 4-8 season, but Iowa State had 6 losses by 1 possession, including a 3-point loss to Kansas, a 1-point loss to Kansas State, and another 3-point loss to Texas. The Cyclones are good, guys. They're a sleeping giant. No one's paying attention to them, and they could surprise you in 2023. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country over there, guys, beating out over 80% of the national analysts and handicappers each of the last 5 years. So if you want guaranteed money in your pocket this college football season, check out our expert picks. We guarantee we'll have a winning record, and we guarantee you'll win money with us. Also, check out our Patreon account for more exclusive college football content throughout this season. As you can see, we have our Patreon Wall of Fame. Already have a handful of patrons up there already, but we're looking to add more. The more Patreons we get, the more exclusive content you get. Also helps benefit our channel quite a bit. So get on there, be a part of the Wall of Fame, be a part of our Patreon. The link for that down in the description below, along with countless other college football content to help you get through this season. So you take a look at Iowa State, guys. We mentioned it. 4-8 season last year could have been a whole lot better. The problem for them was their offense, right? Iowa State's offense only averaged 20.2 points per game. Should be a lot better this year. 9 starters back on that side of the ball, including their quarterback, Hunter Deckers, who threw for over 3,000 yards last year, just has to cut back on the turnovers, making better decisions across the board. Their top 2 rushers return. 3 of their top 4 wide receivers return. Iowa State's loaded back on offense. Should be drastically better than they were last year. The defense, phenomenal last year. 20.3 points per game. That's all they gave up. Gave up just 286 total yards per game. That's insane. Really, really good for a team that was 4-8. Now they return their 6 starters back on that side of the ball, including their top 2 tacklers. Iowa State, guys, defensively could be even better than they were in 2022. You take a look at their schedule. We do believe they open up the year with a win against Northern Iowa. You know, we've seen Iowa State struggle from time to time against some inferior FCS teams to start the year, but I do think they'll beat Northern Iowa in week 1, so they start off 1-0. Then you got the Cy-Hawk game, right? Taking on Iowa in Ames. Last year, the Cyclones put off the upset over the Hawkeyes, winning at Kinnick Stadium with a 10-7 victory. And I got to tell you, I am torn on this game. I am so torn on who to pick between Iowa and Iowa State. But I'm leaning towards the Hawkeyes in this game. You look at Iowa, right? They were a defense that gave up just 13.3 points per game and just 271 yards per game last year. Their defense could be even better this year with 7 starters back on that side of the ball. The offense, which was also their issue like Iowa State, should be drastically better. They added Cade McNamara in from Michigan. They returned 9 starters back on that side of the ball, just like the Cyclones do. But with their leading running back, Caleb Johnson, returning a completely loaded offensive line, I think Iowa gets revenge over their rival on the road. It's going to be close. It's going to be close, and it's going to be low scoring. But I do think Iowa gets their revenge. Iowa State drops to 1-1, but bump them up to 2-1 with a win over Ohio. An Ohio team that was 10-4 last year. Can't afford to sleep on them, especially if you have a heartbreaking loss to Iowa. But the Cyclones did win that game 43-10 last year, and I don't think being on the road is going to make that big of a difference. So Iowa State 2-1 heading into Big 12 conference play against Oklahoma State. And I'll tell you right now, I think Iowa State beats the Cowboys at home and starts the year 3-1 and starts 1-0 in conference play. You look at Oklahoma State, I'm not entirely high on them right now. This is not an Oklahoma State team that just has a lot of questions, in my opinion, especially offensively. And if you look at the game last year, that was another one-possession game that Iowa State probably should have won. They fell to the Cowboys 20-14 on the road, but committed 5 turnovers. 3 of those 5 turnovers were in Oklahoma State territory. They just hit a couple field goals instead of turning the ball over, and they win that game against the Cowboys in Stillwater. So now they're at home against a questionable Oklahoma State offense. Iowa State, as long as they don't make mistakes, I think they're going to learn from their mistakes. I think they win in Ames. And obviously in Ames, at Jack Trice Stadium, that's not an easy place to play at all. So Iowa State 3-1 with a win over Oklahoma State. They do close September on the road at Oklahoma. Traditionally, Iowa State and Oklahoma, at least in recent years, has been a pretty competitive matchup. Typically pretty close and very, very stressful towards the ends of the game. Last year that wasn't the case. Oklahoma won 27-13. And this is Oklahoma team that I think struggled last year in year one under Brent Venables, should bounce back in a big way in year two. I just don't see the Cyclones getting the win on the road, so they exit the month of September at 3-2. They come out of the month of September, first game in October at home against the national runner-up in TCU. And I feel like that's all we're going to hear all year long. TCU was the national runner-up. They were a national runner-up. We get it. They're a good team. They were a good team last year. They're going to be a good team this year. But they lose a lot. And I look at this TCU team, guys, and I say, look, they lose Max Duggan, they lose Kendra Miller, they lose Quentin Johnston. The defense was not very good last year. How drastically different can they be this year? A lot of things go into it. Iowa State lost to TCU last year 62-14. It was an absolute bloodbath. But a lot went into that game. Iowa State, it was in the season finale. They had nothing to play for. They couldn't go bowling. They had nothing to play for. TCU, they had everything to play for. They couldn't afford a loss to Iowa State. They had to win to make sure they could keep their playoff hopes alive. So of course they were going to do that, and of course they were going to add on to that score to impress the Cashapp playoff committee. Things are drastically different now. I think Iowa State is kind of angry that they got 62 dropped on them last year, that TCU ran up that score. Iowa State defensively slows down the Horned Frogs, and they pull off an upset in Ames. Give me Iowa State to take down the national runner-up on October 7th in a game that's going to be drastically different and much closer than it was in 2022. Iowa State now, with 4 wins, goes on the road to Cincinnati. Major trap game, right? We don't know what much to expect out of Cincinnati. One of the Big 12 newcomers, Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, BYU. And, we don't exactly know what to expect from them. While playing at Nippert Stadium is very, very difficult, Cincinnati has no identity on offense right now. They have a pretty strong defense, and we don't exactly know what Scott Satterfield is going to have up his sleeves in his first year with the Bearcats and what is clearly a major rebuilding season for them. With all that being said, Iowa State and Matt Campbell, they're not afraid of anybody. They're not afraid of any environment. They're not afraid of any team. And pretty much in every category for me, with the exception of home field advantage, I think Iowa State owns the edge. And that's why I'm picking the Cyclones to beat Cincinnati on October 14th, despite it being on the road. I think Iowa State has every edge in this game, with the exception of home field advantage. And in a low-scoring defensive battle, they will beat Cincinnati. So look at that, guys. I mean, talk about Iowa State. Talk about a turnaround. 4-8 last year. We've got them at 5-2 heading into their bye week. Already better than last year, but they've got their sights maybe set on a Big 12 title. Only one conference loss, and at least a bowl game at that. The problem is, coming out of the bye week, the schedule is brutal. At Baylor, at BYU, at Kansas State, a really good Texas team and a Kansas team that no one wants to sleep on. So the schedule is tough. And we do think coming out of the bye week, they do fall on the road to Baylor, a Baylor team that has Iowa State's number right now. Iowa State lost to Baylor 31-24 last year in Ames. Probably, that score a little bit closer than the game really was. Baylor pretty much in control of that game for the majority of it. And then right now, going on the road, I just don't see Iowa State, despite the week of rest, beating a Baylor team that is going to be drastically better than they were last year after such a disappointing season. So Baylor gets the win. Iowa State takes their third loss, their second in conference play. Probably eliminates them from Big 12 title contention, but that was never the goal anyways. They do clinch bowl eligibility, though, with a win against Kansas on November 4th. Here's my logic here. Kansas was a fantastic story last year. I love seeing them do well. I love Lance Leipold. I love Jalen Daniels. This Kansas team's good. Offensively, they're really, really good. 10 starters back on that side of the ball, including Jalen Daniels, hoping he can stay healthy. But if that Iowa State defense last year could hold Kansas to 14 points in a 14-11 loss, 14 points and 213 total yards, this Iowa State defense at home can do the exact same thing. I'm not saying they're going to hold them to 14, but I think they can hold them to under 24. And I think Iowa State's offense is good enough to put up just enough points on a Kansas defense that's still a little bit shaky. Iowa State at home, especially knowing what's ahead of them, probably realizes they need this win to clinch bowl eligibility. Matt Campbell's going to make sure his team does it. They lost 14-11 last year. They're going to get revenge for that. A game that Iowa State should have won. They get revenge, clinch bowl eligibility, 6 wins for the Cyclones. On the road to BYU, mark it up as a loss. Playing in Provo is not easy. It's a tough place to play. It's actually the first meeting since 1973. So that's going to be pretty cool. First trip there, first meeting, whatever, since 1973. So that's kind of an interesting historical battle, again, for a new Big 12 newcomer in BYU. BYU, though, they're well coached. Kalani Sitake, extremely well of a coach. Playing in Provo is not easy at all. That atmosphere is going to be tough. It's going to be freezing more than likely out in Utah. This game being played on November 11th. It feels like the perfect storm for me for BYU to get a crucial conference victory as they fight for bowl eligibility. They take down Iowa State. And then I will say that I believe Iowa State loses their next 2 games of the year against Texas and Kansas State. I know many will say, whoa, we almost beat Texas last year. And we almost beat Kansas State for that matter. How can you say we're just going to lose both like that? Texas is going to be dang good. I know we say this a lot, but Texas looks really, really good right now. And Iowa State, well, they almost won. They only lost 24-21 last year. Probably should have won that game, if we're being completely honest. Fumbled at the Texas 28-yard line towards the end of the game. Texas is loaded. Quinn Ewers is going to be back fully healthy. The offense practically returns everybody. The defense was not as bad as people think. That defense was good for Texas last year. It should be even better this year. Despite it being senior day, I just don't think Iowa State, especially offensively, has enough to hang with Texas for a full 4 quarters. And then at Kansas State, playing in Manhattan and the Little Apple, not an easy place to play either. The reigning Big 12 champions, Iowa State held their own. Only lost to Kansas State 10-9 last year. 10-9. But the Wildcats return a lot. Will Howard's back at quarterback. The defense is extremely solid, as always, under Chris Kleiman. I really, really think that Kansas State at home wins this game on senior day. But with that, Iowa State, despite losing 4 of their last 5 games after the bye week, does finish 6-6. I do think Iowa State is good enough to make a bowl game. The talent is there. The coaching with Matt Campbell is definitely there. This is a very, very good Iowa State team, one that was much better last year than their record shows. They're going to start winning some of those close games this year, and they're going to return to the postseason. I know some would say maybe they could go 7-5, 8-4. Maybe they don't beat Cincinnati. Maybe they don't beat TCU. Maybe they beat Iowa. I will say this. I don't think they beat Iowa and TCU. I think they're splitting those 2 games. They're not winning both. But regardless, guys, I have Iowa State and Matt Campbell in the postseason. That's where they belong. They have the talent to do it. They're going to get there this year, and they're going to be a tough out for anybody that faces them in 2023. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. Our expert picks over on thegridironexpert.com. Guaranteed winnings this season. Go sign up today for a full year-long subscription. Our Patreon. Join the Wall of Fame and get some exclusive college football content. We want you there, and we want you to become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.